When Jessica Jones got to college, she abandoned the faith of her mom and dad and joined the drinking and hard partying scene.
Once she would start drinking, she would drink to the point of passing out.
Jessica's binge drinking ended with a drunken high-speed crash into this pole in College Station, Texas. Her blood alcohol level measured 0.3,
which is over 2.5 times the legal limit.
What followed over the next 5 years of rehabilitation changed her life even more. Jessica Jones was raised here in Allen, Texas before she left for college. Now, it's pretty common for college-age kids to wander away from the Lord, and not all that uncommon for them to come back. But it doesn't usually take a catastrophe as big as what happened to Jessica to bring them back. The crash left her in a coma and damaged her brain. When she woke up days later, she faced years of hard, painful rehabilitation. But rather than grow bitter, Jessica saw it as God dragging her out of a life that was killing her.
She had right at the level of alcohol poisoning, so she could have killed herself just from drinking without hitting anything.
It took him to really knock me down to really get my attention.
Now Jessica talks to schools and youth groups about drunk driving. The crash photos and her wounded body a testament to its damage. Josh and Ryan Shook also know what it's like to wander away from faith. In fact, most college-age kids desert God and religion at some point.
70% of students leave the church once they graduate or go off or move away from the home, and only 35% return. And I think that it should be a real wake-up call for the church.
For Josh and Ryan, leaving the faith was seen as a big deal because they were the kids of high-profile church leaders, KERRY and Chris Shook of the 17,000-member Woodlands Church outside Houston. The boys both felt Christianity had little for them, or as Josh put it back then,
there's not a big payoff in living the Christian life.
Even though we saw our parents living out their faith, we thought, man, why isn't their faith exactly working for us?
Their parents say they shoulder some of the blame for not being more open about their own weaknesses and struggles.
And we were just living on a surface level at our house.
If I could go back, there's something we would do differently, and that is we would try to open up a dialogue and a conversation about the crisis of belief.
Didn't open up enough and didn't start early enough.
Eventually, both sons found their way back and want to help other young people do the same. They write about not settling for a secondhand faith in firsthand. It started with Josh confessing to his family that he'd been so mired in sexual sin and guilt, he couldn't face God or fellow believers. Telling that truth set him free.
I wanted to know what spiritual maturity that was, to open up and be totally honest, because, you know, he really taught us how to grow deeper with the Lord by being completely honest and open about our struggles.
Josh and Ryan say young people shouldn't be afraid of their doubts. God understands.
God wants us to have doubts. It's okay to have doubts. The real issue is, what do you do with those doubts when you have them? Do you bring them directly to God?
They also recommend not settling for anything less than finding a real relationship with God where you know He is alive.
For me, it took getting back to the basics. What do you enjoy doing with Christ, with God, that really brings you joy?
Religion, Christianity will never fill me up, but a personal relationship with Jesus Christ will.
A lot of us have carried around secondhand religion for a long time, and we're finally at a place in our 20s where we need to figure out what it is that we really believe.
They say parents need to trust God is big enough to bring their kids back to Him. Jessica's dad relates in his book, The Pole, how Jessica rediscovered God through her crash into that pole and long recovery after.
Because of what's happened to her now, her faith is real. And people see the love and light of Christ in her eyes and her face.
I just see God acting in every situation.
It's a frightening thing for parents to see their kids wander away from their childhood faith, but sometimes it's important so they don't just have a secondhand faith, and so that they know God firsthand. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from Allen, Texas.